Some of the greatest inventions in human history were never supposed to exist. They weren't carefully planned, they weren't predicted, and in many cases, the people behind them had absolutely no idea what they had just created. One mistake gave humanity a material found in nearly every home on Earth. Another transformed medicine and saved millions of lives. One accidental discovery changed the way we communicate. And another became so common that most people use it every single day without ever thinking about its remarkable origin. These inventions didn't just change industries. They changed civilization itself. This is the story of 18 inventions that accidentally changed the world. And by the end of this video, we'll reach an invention that started as a military experiment and eventually connected billions of people across the planet. But long before laboratories and scientists, long before factories and machines, humanity's first great discovery came from nature itself. Fire. 1. Fire. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, early humans lived in a world they barely understood. Lightning struck forests, volcanoes erupted without warning, and enormous fires spread across the landscape. To our ancestors, fire was terrifying. It destroyed everything in its path. But over time, something extraordinary happened. Humans learned to control it. And that single achievement changed everything. Cooking made food safer and easier to digest. Warmth allowed people to survive harsh winters. And for the first time, darkness no longer belonged entirely to predators. Fire extended the day. It brought communities together, and it laid the foundation for civilization itself. But controlling fire created a new challenge. People now needed a way to store food and carry water. And somewhere near those ancient campfires, another accidental discovery was waiting to be made. Pottery. Nobody knows exactly when pottery was first discovered, but many historians believe it happened by accident. Clay left near a fire hardened into something surprisingly strong. What once crumbled in human hands suddenly became durable. And that simple observation transformed human life. Water could now be stored. Food could be preserved. Communities could settle permanently, and civilizations could grow larger than ever before. But storage alone wasn't enough. Humanity wanted to explore farther, trade farther, and transport heavier loads. That dream would eventually lead to one of the most important inventions in history. The wheel. At first, people simply rolled heavy objects across logs. It was a practical solution. Nothing more. But over time, that simple idea evolved into something revolutionary. The wheel transformed transportation, trade routes expanded, empires grew stronger, and distant civilizations became connected in ways never before possible. From wooden carts to modern cars and airplanes, the wheel remains one of humanity's most influential inventions. But while the wheel moved goods and people, another invention would move ideas. And those ideas would survive long after their creators were gone. Paper. Thousands of years ago in ancient China, paper emerged as an alternative to expensive materials like silk. At the time, nobody could have imagined how important it would become. For the first time, knowledge could be preserved cheaply. Stories could be recorded, history could be remembered, and information could spread across generations. Without paper, much of human civilization might simply have been forgotten. But information still traveled slowly. Books had to be copied by hand. And that process could take months or even years. Humanity needed something faster, something capable of spreading ideas across entire continents. And eventually, that invention arrived. The printing press. When Johannes Gutenberg developed his printing press, he wasn't trying to start a revolution. But that's exactly what happened. Books became cheaper, education became accessible, knowledge spread faster than ever before. Ideas that once belonged only to the wealthy could suddenly reach ordinary people. Many historians believe the modern world began with this invention. Because once ideas began to travel freely, nothing would ever be the same again. But even as information spread, disease continued to kill millions. And the greatest medical breakthrough in history would begin with something most scientists would consider a failure. A contaminated experiment. In 1928, Alexander Fleming returned to his laboratory after a vacation and noticed something unusual. One of his Petri dishes had been contaminated by mold. Normally, that would have meant the experiment had failed. But something strange caught his attention. The bacteria surrounding the mold had disappeared. What looked like a mistake would become one of the most important discoveries in medical history. Penicillin, the world's first antibiotic. Millions of lives have been saved because one scientist decided to investigate a failed experiment instead of throwing it away. But accidental discoveries were only beginning. Because another unexpected invention would eventually find its way into almost every home on Earth. Plastic. Originally created during experiments aimed at solving completely different problems, synthetic plastic would go on to transform modern life. It was cheap, lightweight, and incredibly versatile. Soon, plastic appeared everywhere. In toys, in electronics, in medicine, and in packaging. It helped shape the modern world. But it also created challenges humanity is still trying to solve. And surprisingly, another accident, this time in a kitchen, would change breakfast forever. Cornflakes. In the late 19th century, two brothers accidentally left cooked grains sitting overnight. Instead of throwing them away, they decided to roll them flat. To their surprise, flakes formed. What started as a mistake eventually became one of the most popular breakfast foods in history. Sometimes, innovation isn't about creating something entirely new. Sometimes it's simply about recognizing the value of an accident. But another accident would create something much stickier and far more powerful: super glue. During World War II, scientists searching for materials to improve gun sights accidentally created an incredibly powerful adhesive. At first, they rejected it. It was simply too sticky to be useful. Years later, they realized the mistake they had made. Today, super glue is used in homes, hospitals, and even on battlefields. But perhaps even more surprising, another failed adhesive would go on to cover offices, schools, and classrooms around the world. Post-it notes. In the 1970s, researchers at 3M were trying to develop a super strong glue. Instead, they accidentally created a very weak one. For years, nobody knew what to do with it, until one employee began using it to mark pages in his church hymn book. And suddenly, a useless invention became one of the most recognizable office products on Earth. But perhaps the most surprising accidental invention of the 20th century came from something much smaller. A chocolate bar, and a scientist who noticed it melting inside his pocket. The microwave oven.